Well, joining me now from Minneapolis to discuss curbing gun violence is attorney James Cook. He's a criminal defense attorney and also devotes a large part of his practice to protecting civil rights. He is a friend to BNC. We're always glad to see you. Thanks for being here today, James.
Hey, thank you for having me. Appreciate you having me today.
Glad to see you as always. All right, so you know the frequent argument that always comes up with the gun violence issue, of course, is that people say there is a fear. They have a fear the government is going to take your guns, take our guns. Based on your experience, what type of potential laws on the books would cross the line with a person's constitutional right to bear arms?
Well, look, I have to say that I'm biased. I can only come from the perspective of a Black person who, number one, practices civil rights and also has grown up in, or lived in mostly urban areas most of my life. So, I'm biased. I want gun control, but as an attorney, you got to look at both sides. And this is what I'll say: is I don't see how it's really difficult on the federal level to have any meaningful gun control passed, because there's too much at stake on both sides, and they don't seem to get anywhere. Plus, you have the NRA, and so this is the way I look at it: is you're looking at a difference when they're trying to make these laws, when in the Senate and in the House. And if you study negotiation, it's always based on what's called positional negotiation as opposed to interest-based negotiation. Position, you're negotiating from a position, a very staunch standpoint, whereas interest, where you're trying to use both sides' interest to find commonality, and you don't see that in the national legislature. However, this is what I would say, is that if in terms of, let's just say the left side or the Democrat side, if you really want to get something meaningful passed, and if you want to have a chance at it, you have to almost copy what the Republicans are doing, and you got to go state by state with a template that every single state can adopt, and then get the template enacted based on your interest-based negotiation. Find that commonality, right? I mean, there could be a number of things, like the way guns are taxed, long guns versus handguns, that type of thing. I can't, I haven't thought through what I think the ideal situation would be, but interest-based negotiation with the template state by state, just like the Republicans are doing with voting rights, for instance. Okay, and then this is the other thing that I'll say is that you can't have any meaningful gun control or gun control legislation if it is inherently racist, okay? And the Second Amendment and the way it was enacted is inherently racist. And recently, there's a woman named Carol Anderson who just published a book called The Second, and it's called The Second, Race and Guns in a Fatally Unequal America. And gun legislation also in the Second Amendment reflects the inequality in America in terms of everything. And when you look at the Second Amendment, all right, what the people, the advocates say is that there's a full, it's a full sentence. It says a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to bear arms shall not be infringed. And what you're talking about is the original subordinate clause. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of the free state, right? They always focus on the subordinate clause, but not the independence clause, right?
James,
they focus on the independent clause.
Good points. You're making good points. It gets a little technical, when you're not an attorney. So I understand that. I mean, we're almost out of time. I do want to ask you real quick about the mental health issue aspect of it.
Yes.
That's also something that people talk about. Do you think it is possible to get guns out of the hands of people with mental health issues?
Yes, and again, that's where I bring up my issue about a template that you can use state by state, as opposed to trying to get it done in the federal legislature. state by state, a template. And part of that template would be the mental health issue. In fact, California probably has some of the best laws in place where, you know, they use CLETS orders for domestic violence, and there are some domestic violence and also mental health restrictions on gun ownership. And a template like that can be used in interest-based negotiation to limit guns getting in the hands of mental health people. And you can also tax some of those sales to put back in to, you know, mental health programs, state by state. So it could be
James,
a
those are
win-win
all
situation.
good suggestions, James. Yeah, I hate to cut you off. We've got to run. We've got a commercial break. It's a huge discussion that needs more analysis, but you offer some really good insights. But as always, we appreciate you joining us here. Criminal defense and civil rights attorney James Cook, thanks so much for joining us.